indentured workers brought in from India. So he was born in a plantation town called Chaguanas in the larger island of Trinidad Tobago. So in Trinidad, they moved to Port of Spain, which is the main city and the main capital, the capital of the colony back then. And so his father was a writer. He died young, but Naipul was already in England when he died. So there's a little bit of a story there because in Indian culture, the older son is the one that leads the cremation rituals and all that. But he was already in London, so the family couldn't pay for him to come in, and so his younger brother did that. Now he experienced, his mother, after his dad died, although he was in London, he, felt, that his mother had to work, odd jobs to be able to, carry on with the family. Naipal, since very, very, little, maybe in 8, 9 years old, developed, an interest for writing in those years. The British colonies, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, the writers were more focused on short stories. Now, they all were interested in the English market. So the English market wanted novels. So they kind of like transformed, most of these writers transformed the short story into novels. And what they did is a collection of short stories in a book, they're all interrelated. So it makes themselves a novel. And that is the birth of their novel in the British Caribbean colonies. And he was educated in a British school, it's a Queen's College in Trinidad, but then got a scholarship to go to Oxford, but he never finished there. He was an outstanding writer, of course, many, many prizes, and they knew that from the beginning. Hence, that's how he got an Oxford scholarship. But later on, he was never able to finish the Oxford degree, ended up going to London and living there. I'm sorry, he wrote over 20 books. He actually wrote 30 books that I have counted. So, that's a little bit low, and most of them were novels. And he had many, many awards, but these three are kind of like the top ones. In 1971, the Booker Prize, the Jerusalem Prize in '83, and finally culminating with a Nobel in 2001. And he also received the Trinity Cross, which is Trinidad's most, honorable, award. And of course, in England, he was knighted in 1990. Among the books that I'm looking at a transition period from him that actually I think it is right when he writes The Lost of El Dorado, which is his only nonfiction book. So kind of like for me, it's like he learned a lot from the colonial actual history, and that's transformed him, although his transformation started before. His first novel is Mystic Maser, but it wasn't important. His first significant novel, the one that has a lot of, the first, he broke through, and he had, his good reputation started there, was A House for Mr. Biswas, which was published in 1961. It was inspired on his dad, and the struggles of that. Mr. Biswas is his dad, and he was always looking to buy a house of his own, and he never was able to. But a lot of literary critics, say, well, that's also similar to Trinidad. That's all. They always wanted to have a house of their own, but they never did. So it's kind of like he's comparing his life with the actual colonial life or post-colonial life. And that's interesting what I thought. Now, in The Lost of El Dorado, he did a major research, mostly of British sources of the colonial history and the history of Trinidad. And of course, a lot of the characters, there are major magical realism characters, and but what's important is what he learned from the Lost of El Dorado, from researching the Caribbean history. Uh, the next major book was in 1971, In a Free State. In my view, he's already transformed here, and he won the Booker Prize. Bending the River is mainly the first novel that he is out of the Caribbean setting. So he goes to Africa. He internationalizes himself. He sees an African country that is recently independent, and then he sees the main character goes in there and takes advantage, as many people do in newly independent countries. So it's kind of like a reaction to post-colonialism. Now we're free, but we're going to take advantage of this. So without measure, people basically go in and try to make money quick. And the enigma of arrival is basically an analysis of himself in England. Now, I don't know if you guys can see the pictures on the right. The first one is a House of Mr. Wiswas. That's the front cover, and El Dorado. And look at the enigma of arrival. It's very, there's no characters here. It's very dry, industrial, buildings, black and white. I see a lot of difference between the book covers or after the transformation. That's my theory. And so a little bit about my research question. Well, how was he influenced by magical realism? Well, I found one literary critic who called, and I'm going to quote, magical realism is often used only sporadically in authors' work, in the work of the authors, and sporadically even in those of her texts commonly regarded as magic realism. So basically you become a magic realist by just sometimes creating characters. But in the case of Naipul, he's heavy. He does it a lot. His characters are absurd and delusional. Who would have thought of going, finding gold out of Trinidad is in the border of South America, so it was a good spot for a lot of people that wanted to go in the jungle in South America. It's a good spot to wait out and see the next chance to do it. So those characters are there in Trinidad. Pessimistic narrative, influence in colonial experiences, cultural and psychological displacement. All these characters show these traits: the inability of societies to thrive after colonialism and continuance of the marginalizations even after independence. And that is my analysis of my research.
Excellent. I found it really interesting. Your reading your paper made me want to start reading some of his books. I have not read his books. Any comments or questions?
Thank you. So I'm going to stop share. Okay, Dr.
Thank you, George.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to give a informal overview of your research?
Oh,
If you haven't done it, you can also send it to me as a video recording, or do it next Monday.
okay. I will do it on this Monday. Probably I will complete a project about the seminary in Havana. His important role in the development of Cuban culture.
Okay, but keep it short and informal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good idea. That's
all right.
So much information.
I don't want you to stress out over it. And
right. When any topic touch me, then I develop so many things. Thanks.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good week, and I will talk to you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, see you next Monday.
Thank you.